Hi, I'm Kierstyn Berlin. Welcome to YourTown. This is my guest, Dr. Christopher Powell. Welcome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks for having me.
If you don't mind, just giving us a little introduction to yourself, your work, and what you just moved to the community recently, last 6 months.
Yes. Yes, well, I'm Dr. Christopher Powell. I'm a board certified chiropractor and Kundalini yoga instructor.
Okay.
And my postdoctorate studies were in a very weird and cutting edge technique called network spinal analysis, which is a blend of many different kind of like quantum healing type of holistic chiropractic techniques that are very gentle, that work to amplify what's right in the body instead of aligning what's out of place.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might need an example of that. But just to give a little reference, I met you a few days ago. You're a new acquaintance of mine, and I had an experience with you where I described an ailment, specifically a rash around my eye, and you replied with a sentence that around the translation of that to me that was quite personal and really struck a chord with kind of the work that I'm doing at a psycho-spiritual level. And so I understand you're writing a book about how to translate certain elements or communications of the body, as you say, and what that means at a psychosomatic level or psycho-spiritual level. And so that's super intriguing to me. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that. I know you're not working in an office right now, and you're working on Zoom calls, and specifically within that type of work, right? So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do most of my work now on the phone or Zoom, but I also do house calls. I love to get in with the community, and it really helps me going into someone's home to see where they're at. You know, you can kind of get a whole perspective on their lifestyle and what they're eating and how they're living, and so it's just another opportunity to give me a window into their life. But to go back to your point about the symptom, for me, as a chiropractor, I like to really get to the root cause of the issue. So my passion is helping people find the wisdom from their pain and discomfort. Like traditionally, maybe you hear someone go to a chiropractor for neck or back pain or some biomechanical issue that needs to be adjusted, right? For me, I like to read what the subconscious mind is telling the person. So for example, with you, when you said you had some issue with your eye, I like to say, okay, well, what is the subconscious or body mind trying to get your attention? Like what is the wisdom or medicine or message in that discomfort or pain or symptom? So that's what I'm writing a book about.
Right.
Yeah.
Which to me feels really relevant and important as far as a conversation around health and wellness, and especially right now as we're dealing with what people perceive as a health crisis and are experiencing that in a real way. And I guess what's interesting to me is, you know, I've had this like, you know, just as a superficial example, but this rash in my eye for years. And the conventional treatment when I would go to doctors or skin doctors was a steroid cream. Pretty much that was the only solution, the only conversation. There was no conversation of diet. There was no conversation about, coincidentally, you know, the prescription that I was given that was kind of also coinciding with the arrival of this ailment, and there wasn't an empowering dialogue from that exchange. And I kept, as I went back over years for the same thing, I was just given the prescription, and people are very aware that, like, you know, our pharmaceutical industry is really just being applied to a topical solution, and so. It's really intriguing to me. Like, I'm interested in holistic health, I'm interested in holistic design, I'm interested in how our environments shape us, like you're talking about, assessing how we're living and the things around us and what we're putting in our bodies. And what I like about this basically accessing different codes of how your body is communicating with you, it reminds me of like quantum healing sessions, in the sense that you're really going to potentially the spiritual, the psycho root of the symptom, and it's much more empowering,
Mhm.
I guess is where I'm going with that. And it's an important perspective, I think, to communicate and share and a service, right, that you're giving. And so maybe can you talk about how you kind of arrived, your personal kind of why in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, well, let me back up a little bit. When I was an EMT, an emergency medical technician, actually applying for the fire department in San Francisco 2 decades ago. And when I was working in the Oakland community ER, I just saw the quick fix pharma perspective. You know, emergency care we need that, it's perfect. But people would be pushed out the door and be coming back with the same ailments over and over and over. And I'm like, it's just, you know, it was a Band-Aid for me. I wanted to do something that really affected someone's health long term. So I chose the route of chiropractic because chiropractic is basically working with the nervous system that controls everything in order to amplify your innate ability to heal. So I choose to empower people too, and I start with energy. Just like if you went into a home and you wanted to assess the design of a house, you have a blueprint and you take notes and you have a setup before you start demolishing the house. So for me, I like to work with the energy, the emotional, mental, and subconscious alignments first, and then the physicality or pain or symptoms usually fall into place after, which is great. And that's why I can work with people long distance or on the phone, because if I help them tune into the wisdom, like with you, a lot of times their pain will decrease right then and there, or they'll understand. It's empowering because they're like, oh, wait, the way I'm seeing myself or the way I'm living my life needs to change, because that's all a symptom or pain really is. It's just saying, stop. Something needs to change. Take inventory of your life and make a change. And change can be scary, it can be difficult. And I think the really important thing, I'll just end with this, is that in order to feel better, we have to have better feeling. And that is not always comfortable. So if I can get people to feel, you know, all that stuff that maybe they've been reluctant to touch or see, then it's easier for the physicality, the physical symptoms to change, or for them to make a change. So it is empowering.
Okay. And was there any personal health stuff that you were sort of exploring in all of that, or was it all just what you were seeing in the office and in the hospital?
Yeah. I mean, my mother was going through breast cancer, and she gave me a book by Bernie Siegel, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. He's a medical doctor, and that really kind of opened my perspective of like the mind-body connection, really. And you know, I was in the Coast Guard in the military for many years, and just a lot of damage to my body from jumping out of helicopters. I did search and rescue, and so I had a lot of misalignments in not only my spine and nervous system, but I also wasn't truly satisfied with that direction in my life. So I had a near-death experience after that when I was 18 years old that woke me up. And I had a choice to make in that kind of realm of where, you know, the nurses, I had a flat line in the hospital. And for me, I had a choice, and I heard my ancestors saying, turn around, you're going the wrong way. So for me, that's why I came back, to make a different choice, probably to work with people in a different way, to help heal from a spiritual sense, rather than just a quick Band-Aid fix. Because right now with COVID, I think it's really important because we're so focused on a one treatment thing that's going to get us back to normal. But if we go back to living the same way we were living before, we're going to have the same results. It's like that quote about insanity, right? You know, doing the same thing. So I think it's time to do something deeper and taking our own power back and being empowered with our health.
So I don't want to get too polarized, because it's a polarizing conversation.
For sure.
But, you know, just holistically, how do you see, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, and already in the culture there was a lot of, you know, you see a lot of prescriptions for anxiety, depression. It's a pretty common, I think like 30% of the population. is struggling with that and taking prescriptions for it. And so just with COVID, I mean, what is your perspective and how people can reclaim their power around their health, and what is the focus? Because for me, it's like, what do we focus on? And, you know, my personal perspective is if we put all the money and all the focus and all the attention on how to build our immunities, how to create better health in our bodies, I feel like we might be having a more productive result in our symptoms and in our in sickness and I don't know, you know, but is there anything that, like, any perspective that you have that's not too polarized that you could share as far as?
Yeah, well, I love what you say, the polarity, the extremes, really. It's kind of a beautiful thing in a sense. It's helping us to see these extremes and really going, how do we get back to the center? How do we, we're social creatures, we have to connect. You know, we don't want to distance ourselves long term. I can see in a short term perspective.
But it's heightening our awareness of like how important that connection is. Yeah.
And we have to love it. I see love, even the fear that, you know, it's like embrace it first. It's like a 2-year-old child that's screaming for attention, right? You don't shove it in the closet and say, I don't want to hear you. You actually embrace it and give it a hug.
Right.
So we all need more love. We all need more connection. And I think the best way to connect in these times of fear is really, how do we change our perspectives on amping up that part of our nervous system that's not in fight or flight? Because fear just creates a fight or flight response in our nervous system and shuts down healing.
So hands-on, what are some of the practices that you focus on as far as maintaining wellness and immunity and?
Yeah, I mean, and it's different for every person, but the one thing is really to come back to your breath. For me, when I'm talking with people on the phone, I just have them touch the part of their body that's in pain, right? Because it's like a 2-year-old child calling out for attention, breathing into it, not saying, oh, my bad shoulder or my bad knee, you know, saying, okay, I love you. Thanks for screaming at me. What are you trying to tell me? It's like a paradigm shift of not saying this is a part of me that's other
that's
or
wrong,
separate
or that's wrong.
Right. And really reclaiming that and connecting to the pain or discomfort, because that's your medicine.
Right.
So breathing into it, staying with it. We're so used to, like, in a quick fix society of, I want to get rid of the pain. How can I do something else? Where can I refocus? And just spending time with that is so easy.
This idea of, like, we're actually perfect, right? And that, like, the things that are surfacing for us are the perfect mirror for what is next for our understanding, or what needs, it's like whatever's coming up is what needs to be there. And the more that we sort of numb and suppress, the louder those things become.
Absolutely.
And kind of you know, the more kind of trudging through the mud that sort of seems to happen in the beginning of letting those things surface. And I feel like collectively, a lot of the things that we've been just numb and tuned out is surfacing in this process. And it is sort of almost like the collective communication of the virus that's teaching us what we need to see as far as human connection, as far as what's really important, about where we're putting our time. And I know that all across the board, what I've seen is people getting more intentional. What are my intentions? What are my beliefs? What are my rights? And what do I fight for? You know, how is it okay to be different than the crowd? How do I do that in a respectful way? You know, all these things come up to our awareness, and so just sort of embracing it as a process that's wanting to be seen, and respecting everybody's experience of what that means for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we all have a path. There's so many paths to God that's been said, and your path is different. You got to honor what you choose to do in your life. So I'm just kind of like a tool to help people to tune into that.
So how can people find you if they're interested in working with you? And maybe just talk about, like, since you're here and you're new, I know you're probably still establishing what that looks like here without a place of business.
Right.
But so
my website,
dr.christopherpowell.com. Okay.
And they can get in touch, send me an email, and
And home visits is kind of what you're focused.
Yeah,
your
and I do
attention's
like
on.
a quick 5 minute or so free consultation just to see if we're the right match.
Can you talk a little bit about diet or how you incorporate health and wellness with diet?
Yeah, and diets to me, I just tune into my body. I mean, I've been doing yoga for almost 20 years, so I'm in tune with kind of what my body needs. So I'm a flexitarian, which just means, I was a vegetarian for many years. If I come across, meat that's from a good source, I may have meat, I bless it in a certain way. So diet isn't, I think just going as much natural to the source as possible.
Right.
Stick out, greens,
Right.
organics.
Frequency.
Fruits and vegetables are important right now to really connect with the energy that's coming in. That if you want to make a true change, and we want to align with that energy, fruits, vegetables, anything pure from the ground is going to be very helpful.
Right, and you mentioned breath work, which is interesting
Yeah.
to me because there's a book that came out that actually we were talking about. It's called
Breathe.
Breath, and it's starting to become more in people's awareness, other than just the meditation and pranayama communities, which it's been. I find kind of the digger I deep, the more I find this wisdom and this really critical importance on breath in health and in stress reduction and in many, many things that I don't even understand, right? Do you have a specific breathwork practice or a teacher?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just because with all the fear, our nervous system has to be retrained because fear causes our breath to go shallow and it contracts. So right now, that's why there's such a resurgence of breath work. Just long, deep, focused breathing, I would say start there. 5 minutes.
Like using the whole diaphragm.
Whole diaphragm, breathe into your belly and bring it up. A full breath in your nose because that helps to stimulate certain chemicals to open the body.
And reduce the nervous system or go into
and push it into parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, and where healing comes from.
Right.
So
that's where the healing occurs.
Yeah, and we've been overstimulated with the stress response during the
Indeed.
last couple of years.
Well, I think we're wrapping up here. Thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.